All right, so I'm going to give my first astrology lesson just by myself so that people can get the idea of why we would study astrology. So I decided this morning while I was walking that I would show you a chart of someone that I had yesterday who I've never met before, but is a member of our community. And her name is Marco Polo online, and that's what her YouTube commenting name is. And so when I did her chart yesterday, she showed me her cat, which is named Marco Polo. So I decided this morning to run the asteroid Marco Polo just so that you all can see. And it is here, but I'm going to also show you on the hand drawing of the chart. So this is astro.com, and Marco Polo, the word Marco is conjunct her vertex, and it is also conjunct the ruler of her ascendant, her Jupiter, which is right in here. And I'm going to show it on a regular hand-drawn chart. So the cat is named Marco Polo, and I had written Marco Polo in her house of pets. I wrote the name, and then I found that the asteroid is in fact there. Not only that, but it was transiting. She was having a transiting return to Marco Polo. And then at the same time, she has another Marco up here conjunct her vertex. So for me, that is the point of astrology, is that, and I had some weekend sessions that were super interesting for me, where I started doing the couples, with the partners so that my regular clients had their partners on the call. And it was very interesting because I can see everything in their chart. And one man who, I don't know, I have never met this person, and he was very quiet, but I actually started reading directly from an astrology book the key words. And at the end of the session, he was like, so if this is all scripted, like what's going on? Well, what are we even doing here? And that's the point. So, what you are is you are magnetized light from the moment of your birth. So, in this person's chart, which I had yesterday, I had never met her, but I could tell just from her transits of, or actually her natal placements of Mars, Pluto, and Uranus in Virgo. I knew she was a 1960s child because that happened, Mars, Pluto, and Uranus in Virgo opposite Chiron in 1965. And that was when we had the whole Vietnam War. So it was torturous. And then Chiron is the wound of hybridization, which happened as a result of Agent Orange. So that was when my father was in Vietnam. And then that transferred as an epigenetic situation to my chart when I was born in 1969. So it's amazing. You're looking at basically a picture in time. That's what your chart is. And then what happens is transiting asteroids will come around, like the woman with the cat named Marco Polo. I think, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, that the cat just showed up. Like she didn't go shopping for a cat named Marco Polo. And yet it's in her chart. So the man I was speaking to over the weekend, he was like, so how can you, and I was like, there's nothing that you won't know. The only thing you can do with the chart is figure out where to not entangle with something that's poisonous. And that leads me to the next bit, which is that in 2008, I stopped doing shamanic soul retrievals and removal of entities because what I found was that it's in the astrology and you can do it. And I tried to tell people, like, if I do it, it's just going to come back because it's going to be in your astrology. You actually magnetically attract, just like a cat named Marco Polo. You magnetically attract certain things. You don't have to go shopping for them. They will come to you. So the other thing is, if something's bothering you in your life and you think you have some kind of, entity or demon possession, put the exact name of that and it could be even beer. If you're drinking too much beer, you have that potentially conjunct your ascendant, like I do, and you have to be very careful. So throughout my life, I've had to like, please do not give me beer, please, like, to the point where I would show up with my one really high quality non-GMO beer to an event, and I'd be like, no, leave me alone, because it magnetizes in my chart. So the free will that you have is to not entangle with it. But you also can make it super conscious and use it appropriately, which is the other thing in astrology. So say some Marco Polo person comes in your life, if it's not conjunct your Jupiter like it is in this woman's chart, like it's not highly beneficial because it's conjunct her Jupiter, the ruler of her ascendant, then you can also say, I don't want to entangle with you. Like, I'm not going to entangle with you no matter how many times that person shows up at the door. So if it's conjunct like your Mars or your Chiron, you might know that that's going to cause arguments, or Chiron would be like wounded feelings of being an absolute outcast. And it can be a person too. Like, I had a client who had a Jared, Jarod, and there's more than one Jared. And we noticed that it was, significant in the chart and transiting. So she was like, there was a transiting of effect that she had to deal with this person. Then eventually it was like, no, you're too wounded, or, you're making me feel too wounded, and I'm not doing that anymore. So literally, from the time that you take your breath, your first breath, you are magnetizing all of these events. And then why? Why? It's because in a single moment, you are transferring that information back to source, or back to what you call the galactic central sun. So, some of the work that I want to get into is that the kingdom of heaven is within you. And for my clients who are not on my private Facebook page for Galactic Astrology for Multidimensional Earth, please do take a screenshot of this right now. This is the Eye of Horus, and the kingdom of heaven is within you. So I'm going to explain something really unbelievable, which I've been trying to explain about the holographic universe. But your brain is multidimensional, so that depending upon what is activated in your multidimensional brain, that's what you're seeing. So you're seeing a different reality based on the kingdom of heaven inside of you and whether it's been activated or not. So I've drawn in the amygdala, which is a slight pink. And I'm going to be talking a lot about how the stars and the dimensions connect to not only your multidimensional brain, but also your chakra system. So I'm going to explain all of that. And we're going to understand the fixed stars and the gates, what are called the gates, the Silver Gate and the Golden Gate, which were the last blogs that I wrote in December of 2022 before my website got taken down. But Natalie is assisting me, and I think she's going to get some Google Docs of all of that stuff for everyone. So we'll see how that goes. In terms of this image, okay, your brain connects to the dimensions, and you have chakras even outside of your body that connect to different dimensions. So what I've been talking about a lot is the pineal gland and the ability to see beyond just this dimension into other realms. And that is how the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. In that, if you can see, like that video I did with Aurora's painting behind me, that's actually space time. It's geometry. And we're going to learn how the planets and the stars actually make those geometries of space time, and then your brain can connect or not connect. So the pineal and the pituitary gland, the amygdala or the Magdala, which I also wrote a lot about, the Magdalene is actually the ability to use the amygdala. So the amygdala is significant on a strawberry full moon, which we have coming right now, a strawberry full moon after what I considered the most significant new moon of the year. And that's when I announced that I was going to start doing astrology classes. And then I waited until the full moon, because a new moon is when you start growing something. You start like planting the seed and growing and getting the materials ready. So between the new moon announcement and the full moon, which is tomorrow, I've done all my work, and I have a journal. And so what you're going to need is a journal, and your heart connects to your arm, connects to your hand, connects to your eyes. So I would like for you to also draw and write and draw a brain, like draw a brain. I don't want you to just have a screenshot of it. I want you to draw every bit of this, which connects to your learning and your knowing inside of your body. So what the amygdala is, it's emotions, feelings, psychic impressions, intuition, and it links to your memories. So if you have your amygdala, your pineal gland, or your pituitary gland being messed up with by pathogens, you have to know that then you are not going to be able to see through the dimensions. You are not going to be able to see space-time like I do. So I'm very careful about that. And that's why I have all these psychic impressions, this deep intuition, and it will lead me to greater research. And it links me to the memories and the feelings like of strawberry and this time of year. And what does that mean? And I will actually go out there and like eat the strawberries and do a ritual ceremony of feeling like that connects to the amygdala. So it's a biochemical and physiological balance in the amygdala. If your amygdala and all of these glands in your brain, the pineal, the pituitary, if they are not in balance, then you're going to have brain fog, depression, anxiety, vertigo, dizziness, all of those things that we've talked about. Now, the pineal gland is connected to the solar masculine, as we understand it right now. The solar is masculine, but it could be feminine. In any case, the pineal gland, the sun comes directly through your skull into your pineal gland. So I've written a lot about the pineal gland, and it comes directly through. And so they're blocking the sun. They've been blocking it since last Tuesday. Huge amount of particles in the air. So it's not just like I can go out and do a tea light under a brine, like a vinegar, salt, water solution, and change the ionic pressure. It's literally, there's particles in the sky. So they're blocking the sun. So we've been doing a lot of sitting by the fire at night. And then if it rains, we literally sit under a tent with the fire like on the edge of the tent to get that red light for the solar pineal gland. And then the pituitary gland is a feminine. So the solar is the masculine right now, but it could change. And the pituitary is the feminine or the lunar quality. And they're on either side. So here's this gland, here's this gland, and they both affect the amygdala, which is your psychic impressions. And then your eyes, basically, these are rods and cones, the same structure as your eyes. And then that is what you see in the world. Like you see based on those inner abilities. So the electromagnetic energy from the constellations, the stars, the heavens, are literally applied to the cells of the brain. We are affected by celestial alignments because they are electromagnetic. So when you have a Saturn and Neptune conjunction, which we do right now at the first degree of Aries, that is changing us. That is moving us through space-time. And those of us who are intact with the natural biological human, we're going to see different things. Like Claude and I just walked a loop that we haven't walked in several months. All different things, all different space-time, all different people, different animals. The road is different. It was amazing. And so this happens every time you change your inner world, because the kingdom of heaven is within. Every time you change your inner world, the outer world starts to change, particularly now that we have these big planets moving over very important, what I'm going to call stargates in our local system environment. So the celestial alignments then affect your dreams. They will affect your visions because you're basically an antenna to divinity. And what the pineal gland is it's a photoreceptive cells of rods and cones, just like the eye. It responds to light delivered through the skull. It produces melatonin, which I've already discussed, the hormone for sleep, and you need at least 8 and hopefully 10 hours of sleep every night in the deep dark to exercise that pineal. And people are often telling me that they can't get to sleep, but remember, you cannot have like blinking lights or electromagnetic other frequencies that are irradiating you to get the natural information from the celestial alignments that are happening right now. So you must do that. And the pineal gland is then producing melatonin that helps your sleep, helps the circadian rhythms, and helps your dimensional perceptions. It helps your dimensional perceptions so that you're not just in this dimension, you're in all 15 dimensions. And that's why I'm calling this galactic astrology for multidimensional Earth. It also, the pineal gland does not imagine things. It literally receives, it receives as a receptor information that is not your imagination. And you have to follow that with your intuition and your research and your study, which is why I'm always like getting like some insight. I got this insight about raw cow's milk and I started searching it. And sure enough, only raw cow's milk or raw dairy products activate the pineal gland because of substances that are in it. And I'll show you that too, so you can make a screenshot. I put it up actually yesterday. So anyone who follows me on YouTube or on my Facebook page, all of that information is there. Like raw milk is the thing that activates the ability for your pineal gland to be photoreceptive and also to get a good night's sleep at night. You can drink a little bit of raw milk and then it just like calms you down. Neem Karoli Baba, if someone was really upset, he would give them milk because in India, you know, everyone's got a cow. You just milk the cow and there's your milk and it calms you down. Whereas if it's heated or what is called pasteurized, it doesn't work at all. In fact, it has the opposite effect. So you want the most natural living environment like fire, firelight, raw dairy products, grass fed only. So I went to the farm and took a picture of the cows. They have to be grass fed. They also have to be living in a natural environment and be very happy to produce that hormone within your multidimensional brain. So it also contains crystals of calcite that are arranged in piezoelectric lattices, and they literally dance around inside of your brain. They can move, and they do move, and you organize them, and they convert mechanical energy of heat and movement into electrical charge, which is how you get to the speed of light. You don't get to speed of light by running really, really fast. You get to the speed of light by organizing the crystals in your brain. That's how you get to the speed of light. And you're getting this electrical charge that acts as the compass of the soul so that you are realigning to the geomagnetic, solar, and planetary harmonics. So that is all just on that page, okay, of my journal of astrology. And that is how I want you to approach it. I don't want you to approach it in a passive way where you're just like listening, whatever Lalita says. I want you to research, what did you find out about the brain as a multidimensional ability to travel through the dimensions if certain parts are activated or not? What did you find out are the right things to eat or the cycles and the rhythms and how to move your body to increase that energy? Okay, then I'm going to relate this over to something I was listening to Philip K. Dick's speech from France in 1977. And he was talking about the lateral axis in time, and that there is this core essence timeline that we are supposed to be on, but there are also other multiple worlds which there are. And so those multiple or alternate overlapping realities can also feel like there are other timelines that you can be on. And that has to do with your multidimensional brain and how healthy it is. And if you're really connecting with that core essence, that central timeline. And he talked about some potential like variable that could be changed in the timeline that then would cause problems. And I think that variable was when they decided at the Council of Nicaea to say that the Christ was a martyr. And when they did that at the Council of Nicaea, and then they have a weekly black magic ritual to say that you're eating the body and drinking the blood of a martyred avatar, then that puts a sacrifice technology, that puts a death cult technology in all of us. So that's how they change the variable. And then you feel like you're looping around again and again and again. And what are you looping around for? Is you're waiting for some Messiah to come and save you. But I'm gonna correct that right now in the timeline, because as I say this, it reaches the stars immediately. Nobody needs to die or be ritually sacrificed in order to ascend into your multidimensional brain. That is the lie and the timeline that keeps us looping through this apocalypse thing. So I have been fixing that for as long as I can. I've been fixing that. And the other person that has been fixing that is Ashana Dean and a few other people who know that this black magic ritual of a martyred, sacrificed avatar is exactly why we keep looping around. So that's the variable that Philip K. Dick was talking about. So, in addition to that, the other thing that just happened was the transgression of the trans situation. So, if you have changed your blueprint from your original magnetized light body, you are also not operating on your original magnetized light body because it has to do with the antenna of the original blueprint that you came in with. Now, that doesn't mean that the blueprint can't change and grow, because what I also understand, I'm going to show you what I've been working on here, and you can all certainly make a screenshot of that too. And I did put that up. That is in the Galactic Astrology for Multidimensional Earth page, so that you can look at this at any time and remember all the notes. So the 12 signs have to do with this 12 strands of your DNA. Your DNA is supposed to have 12 strands. And what I understand of the DNA is that it will have a 2-strand outer signature. And then inside are these other strands that connect to make the 12 strand. And then that will double into a particle, antiparticle, 24 strand, and that can double also into a 48 strand, depending again on your brain and whether your multidimensional brain is seeing through the 15 different dimensions that we have here. So the 12 strands are basically these 12 different signs, and they get activated, and the solar system gets completion when you complete the full awareness of your chart. And that is why I want you to draw your chart and look up asteroids. You look up the asteroids. Of course, I can do it, but I don't want you to be a passive learner. I want you to look up asteroids of anybody's name, of someone who keeps asking you out for coffee or, anything like that. Look the name up and see where it's transiting. See if it's significant, meaning it's conjunct a planet or the ascendant descendant line or some transiting fixed star that is important in your chart. So let's look at this. So the 12 signs are also the 12 disciples. The 12 disciples are your blueprint, okay? And what I understand also is that we have a major um, planetary event happening here, which is Alcyon. So, what's happening right now is the movement of Uranus. Uranus is moving right now from the last degrees of Taurus to this very important gate at Alcyon. This is called the Silver Gate or the Gate of Man. And this movement of Uranus is going to happen on 7/7. Now, as I told you, this is a multi-dimensional experience. And when a big outer planet that is highly electrically charged, like Uranus, moves over this gate of Alcyon, what it does is it shines its light across the starry heavens of this neurological system of stars over to the Golden Gate. This is the Golden Gate of Ophiuchus, or the Hidden Master. We're in the system called Sagittarius A, so the galactic central sun is here. But here we have Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus is Ophi, U, Isis, Isis. And the Horus and the birth of the Holy Child is what you are giving birth to. And what does the birth of the Holy Child look like? There's the birth of the Holy Child. It's inside of you. The Horus is inside of you. These gates are inside of you. The whole multiverse is inside of you. So this is where Uranus is transiting at this gate, which is the equinox gate of 0 degrees Aries. This is where Neptune and Saturn are going to be going back and forth across this gate. So this is why I believe that we are going to have a bifurcation also, and it's going to get very significant by 7/7, is that Uranus is going to shine this light. Some are going to go into the phantom matrix. So this was already explained way back in 1997 by Ashayana Dean, and many other groups realized that after 13,000 years, people have made choices, and those choices are based on where you're going next. Are you going to experience more of the phantom matrix, or are you going to go to the multidimensional experience, which is called the gate of heaven? Okay, the Golden Gate. So here's Uranus. Something is very significant. It's going to change. Ophiuchus is actually the stars from, and let me look at this, 2 degrees on November 24th at 2 degrees Sagittarius is Delta Ophiuchi. And then it goes to Beta Scorpio on November 25th, the very next day. And then by December 2nd, it's Alpha Scorpii. And that is because the story is this. The story is that this is Isis and this is Ophiuchus. And the story is that Isis has to put back together Ophiuchus, and the one thing that she's missing is his snake. So Ophiuchus is literally called the snake handler. And somebody told me and showed me this wonderful, like, Crete or Minoan goddess, and she's holding 2 snakes in either hand. That's Ida and Pingala. Those are the 2 different, the lunar feminine and the lunar masculine that I told you about in this. The lunar feminine and the solar masculine are those energies that come up. And the snake handler then gives birth to the Eye of Horus, or the ability to see multidimensional Earth. So the story is that Scorpio and Ophiuchus overlap here because the Scorpio stings the hunter Orion in the foot, which is over here at the Gemini stars, stings this Orion fellow in the foot, and then that venom comes up the body, and it's like the ambrosia that has to come up to the third eye. And then Scorpio overlaps with Ophiuchus. And then by December 10th, you have Sabik at 18 degrees, which is that snake handler in its full glory as the Ankh, right? So handling both snakes, but this is the Ankh, the eternal being, by December 10th. And then the day after that, we get to Alpha Rasselhag, which is the head of the serpent, the head of the serpent of Ophiuchus the snake. And that is then pointing or leading to galactic central sun, which is source consciousness. Now, what people don't realize is that the centaur, even though this is about some Sagittarius centaur thing, centaur is from 22 degrees Libra, which is way over here by Arcturus, and it goes to 0 degrees Sagittarius, where Isis sits holding the Horus, but it's in Ophiuchus, but it's pointing the arrow to the hidden master. Now, in some of the writing that I'm going to explain to you, the hidden master is the Christ, which is you. And the Christ is actually this ambrosia that comes up through the body and then stimulates the third eye. So we're going to get into that a little bit. I have this other writing about the Golden Gate, and this was in my very last blog. And certainly I'm going to read it to you, but you can also find it on that Facebook page. And you could also watch Claude out there. He's doing planting right now. So the Golden Gate is what leads us finally beyond re-incarceration here. Ophiuchus is the 12 disciples of the 12 different strands of your original blueprint. And the Christ is the hidden master, or the what you'd call the 13th sign, which isn't hidden at all. It's actually just Sagittarius A. It's pointing towards all of this from 22 degrees Libra to 0 degrees Sagittarius. That's the centaur with the arrow pointing towards Ophiuchus, saying you've got to handle these energies inside, the feminine, the masculine. So that is the 12 disciples, and the 13th sign is the master of Ophiuchus. So never have the Hellenistic people thought the wrong thing, because these constellations all overlap, and I hope to show you that in this recording today too. So if you want to follow that, I adapted much of this from what's called the 7worlds.wordpress.com / golden. And it was written in 2011 that there are these two gates. So some people call them the stargates. So as Uranus opens the silver gate, it necessarily sends a ray over to the golden gate. Some of us will go one way, some of us will go the other way, and that is what I call the bifurcation. It's not up to me, it's up to you. Whether you kept yourself really healthy and your original blueprint intact, and you've avoided certain pathogens and carcinogens that would affect you in other ways or poison you. So the starry cosmos has these two gates of coherent light, and they are at the 2 degrees Gemini, which is Osiris, or Osar, which is an Orion. And then the other intersection is where I showed you between Scorpio and Sagittarius, where they actually overlap and the constellations overlap. That's called the Golden Gate at 2 degrees Sagittarius. So 2 degrees Gemini and 2 degrees Sagittarius is a perfect alignment of the stargates. The galactic center, if you turn that way and you're out there, we haven't seen the stars in quite some time, but you can go out there and you could look, and you're going to look that way and you're going to look straight across. And there's different times of year to be able to do that based on the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere. But the serpent holder of Ophiuchus, right? Ophiuchus or Genesis is always 180 degrees across from Osar or Orion. And so we are in the galaxy called Sagittarius A, and Ophiuchus is the Christ or the Horus that is born of Isis, that is actually your third eye. So we're always talking about that, what the ancients called the gate of man and the gate of the gods. And you can figure out how to look at this with the alignments. When the sun aligns to Ophiuchus, which always happens by like November into December, it starts to align and it literally opens up your brain through your cranial nerves and starts to stimulate that. And that's why at that time of year, from like November 24th, they try and distract us with Hallmark holidays, which are absolute baloney. That's when you should be meditating and looking into your third eye and sitting by candlelight or sitting by firelight instead of like doing consumer holidays. So that's that really deep part when you're going into the dark. And the darker it is, the more that your third eye stimulates. But only if at this time of year you get all the sun from this gate. You see, so this gate right now, what we're going through right now, is when you collect all the light so that at that time of year, you can sit and meditate and go inside into that deep stillness place. And then that opens from death to eternal life. And that's what the whole idea of being resurrected is. It's not because some guy was crucified on the cross and your stigmata proves it. No, that's not it at all. Your resurrection is when you really start to open in your third eye and you no longer know death. So there's a whole bunch of stuff about the spark gap between the thalamus and the hypothalamus, and that it meets this ambrosia in the pineal gland, and that's called Golgotha. So when you see Magdalene with her hand on top of a skull, Golgotha is the oil that lubricates your third eye. Okay, there's the kingdom of heaven. It is within. That's why we assign that time of year to Isis giving birth to the Holy Child. The Holy Child is inside of you. Okay, that's the point of astrology. But back within that is like how I began this whole conversation, is that it's all scripted down to the cat that walks up to your apartment and wants to live with you in your garden named Marco Polo, because you are experiencing something that then goes back to these starry networks. Your brain sends it immediately through your third eye. You are a photoreceptor to all of this starry information in this light. So the other thing I want to tell you about how this whole situation works is that, and we will do week by week classes on this, but Cancer is the theme of Monday. And I've talked about the clock. Okay, so right here, Juneteenth, right? Juneteenth is coming up. If you look at a calendar, Juneteenth is a very important date, because what happens on Juneteenth or June 19th is the star that is our sun crosses over Polaris. Polaris is the only star in the heavens that doesn't move. By appearance, it's fixed, and the whole heavens move around it. So Polaris is also called the pole star. And on June 19th, our sun crosses over Polaris. So that is when the sun is at its elongation at the highest point. And then it crosses into what's called the summer solstice, and it stays for 5 days between June 19th. It stays or stations at a certain a height, let's call it a height, and by appearances from your perception, it will stand at that same height. And so you need a farmer's almanac to see that it will be at that same degree mark. And then it basically, on that point, on that solstice point, it starts to exhale and it starts to then lower, and will start to move back across until over this point, right? We start to get to the opposite of Juneteenth would be like December 19th, right here. And then you get to the other solstice event where it's at its lowest declination. And it also holds still for 5 days there before it starts to inhale or rise again. So these are the gates, right? And then Polaris, when it's actually crossed, that's the timing event on Juneteenth or June 19th. So all of the people who are concerned that astrology is wrong or the calendar is wrong, the calendar is correct. It's that we have the 12 signs connected to your blueprint that you have to activate and make conscious your location of where the intermediaries are, or what I call the solar system, the watchers are the intermediaries to this light of the fixed stars. All right. The other thing you can do with astrology is I would like you to make a circle, and you can just use a bowl, and then put 30 degrees. See those tiny little marks right there? Put 30 degrees in each of the 12 signs, and that gets you to 360. So there's no other way to do the geometry. The stars are correct, the calendar is correct. It's just that people have not studied the ancient Hellenistic astrology. And that's why I've hand drawn everything, because you can't get it on the internet. And that's why in my little Facebook group, I don't allow people to post, only I post, but people can comment. Because last time I did this in 2018, when I did this whole coursework, people were putting up a whole bunch of bull crap from modern astrology from the internet. You cannot learn this from the internet. I'm making this right now. And yes, once we go, the magnetosphere reverses, I'm not even sure we're going to be in the same place or we're going to have this solar system, but I will always know how to study astrology because I understand geometry. I understand stargates. I understand where we are right now. Where we are is we're in a fractal matrix that has fallen, and we have to make conscious these intermediaries, these asteroids. They, like Marco Polo is an asteroid in the asteroid belt, but it's a broken bit of the ancient planet Tiamat. So by making it conscious and living it out, you actually finish the solar system. The solar system no longer needs to exist for you. And that's how the kingdom of heaven is in. You've made it totally aware and conscious in your body. You know that Marco Polo is supposed to be living with you, and he's a cute little cat that's conjunct your Jupiter, and he's your dearest friend. He's the steersman of the ship of your chart. Now, if you can do this and put these in, you know that 15 degrees is going to be in the center of each one. Okay? And that is how I have the list of the fixed stars, but you might not have the entire list of the fixed stars. You can start to put in what is the fixed star at that degree. And at that point, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, there's 88 constellations that overlap. So here in Libra, everyone thinks it's about the Libra scales. It's not. It's about the crow. The onyx is the stone for the crow, the onyx. So if you have something at around that 15-degree mark of Libra, which happens on October 6th, you would want to resonate with the crow energy, because these constellations are also like spirit animals or spirit experiences that affect you. So you should know the full mythology of this Delta Corvi. It's a yellow purple star, and it's called Algorab. It happens on October 15th, and you can see my little 15 or October 6th, and it's right around 15 degrees Libra. So people are going to be like, what are you talking about? There's a crow in Libra? Yes, there's a crow in Libra. But at that time of year, you see, it's the combination of these starry messengers, these constellations that affect what the seasonal depiction is. So October is very like onyx. It's very like a murder of crows. It's very like that energy. And so, yes, it's balancing the scales. It's Libra because that is the equinox, the balance between the day and the night. That's Libra. But what's in that constellation is the crow. you know and so you can also study what are the rocks. Okay, at this is the onyx at 15, but if you get closer to Arcturus or Spica on October 16th, that is the emerald because it has to do with the wheat maiden. And the maiden is a huge constellation that isn't just there, but covers this whole area. And you can find the fixed stars for each part. And that emerald goes with that, but the onyx goes with that. But the overall seasonal depiction for Libra is an opal. Isn't that interesting? Because it's the many different swirling colors balanced in the sign of Libra. It's both this wonderful wheat maiden and the crow that would otherwise eat the wheat from the wheat maiden. You see, so it's this amazing system. You also can find out that Libra happens from September 23rd to October 22nd, and it affects the kidneys, the lower back, and the adrenals. So that if you have a malefic like Mars, which is in a detriment in Libra, meaning Mars cannot bring about its condition very well, and you have Mars in Libra, you might have problems with your lower back or your adrenal because adrenal is cortisone and how we fight. If you have Mars there, you might never be able to make a decision. You're going Libra, balance the scales. Let's be more peaceful. Let's be harmonious. And so you start to get adrenal fatigue because you're stressed out all the time because you can't make a decision. So that's how I know Mars is a detriment in Libra. But if you move across and you have Mars in Aries, so it's always going to work like that. It's perfectly designed that Mars is a detriment here, but Mars is a domicile lord there. So it's also perfectly geometry. The geometry has got to be the oppositions or the polarization. If Mars is in a detriment here, Mars is a domicile lord with all its power in Aries. So when we go into Aries, the Martian nature enters with a yellow orange star called Deneb Katos, which is the tail of the sea monster. The Sabian symbol for that degree is a woman has just risen from the sea. Okay, so from the sea, because this is Pisces, this is Aries. So the Sabian symbol there is a woman from the Piscean great mutable waters of the fish's tail tide, but also the Pegasus and several other constellations. But a woman has risen from the sea and a seal is embracing her. So the Selkie coming up out of the sea. So if you have something at 2 degrees, like 0 to 2 degrees Aries, you're being affected right now by the fact that Saturn and Neptune are there. And so I was looking up what is the keynote for that area, the emergence of new forms and the potential of a brand new consciousness. And that's why I also am saying we're going to have a bifurcation with Uranus moving here and Saturn and Neptune here for this emergence from the sea of a brand new consciousness. And Saturn and Neptune are going to go back and forth across this equinox gate. So we've got different gates. We've got the solstice gate, we've got the gate of gold, we've got the gate of man, we've got the stargates are opening. And that's how I also know those of us who have the kingdom of heaven within. And, yeah, I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else. I don't know if I'm going to make it through or any of us are going to make it through, but the gates are going to open. And this is going to happen that we are going to change. Some of us will be in the phantom matrix, and some of us will be in the true singularity of the oneness again with the whole heavens. So, if you're wondering about like what rocks or what cell salt to use, I've also got that written down and you can do that research. If you have malefic planets, even like all of us have Saturn coming into Aries where it is not in good condition. Okay. Saturn is in a fall in Aries. So you might need to supplement yourself. You might need to wear diamonds. That's really weird because that's the gem associated with that. Or you could take Kali phosphoricum, cell salt number 6, which would help you. What I'm doing is I'm taking all of the cell salts because at this point, the homeopathic cell salts really can help you. Oh, this is my daughter on the other side. So you might see that sometime. Like we do art, we do collage art. This is one of my daughters doing collage art, and she like put a whole bunch of poetry, and this is art. Like you're supposed to do art. All right, that's what I want you to do. I want you to get a notebook or a whole lot of pieces of big construction paper, and I want you to draw the circle. I want you to draw the 30 degrees, put 15 in the center, start to figure out the fixed stars. You can use Astrology King. And what it is this is 0 degrees Sagittarius. And that, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it backwards. So I actually have to do it. This is 0 degrees Sagittarius. And this is 2959. So it goes 0, 0. So yesterday, Jupiter came into Cancer and it was at 0, 0. And I saw it at 0, 0. That's the beginning of the sign. The end of the sign will be 2959. And that's because it goes after that 29 degrees, 59 minutes to 30 degrees, the completion of the sign. And so that's how you figure it out. You don't have to be perfect. Like if you're one of those like Virgo's my South Node folks. So like I hand draw this stuff. I don't use measurements. I use my eyes. I go, oh yeah, that looks about 15 degrees. I'm not like making the perfect 30 degrees across. And you can see right here at 12 degrees is Alphecca, the northern crown in Scorpio. And I haven't, like drawn it in very precisely, but there's 12 degrees. That's November 4th, the northern crown. And that's when I hope to do retreats. So I would always love if we could get together the first week in November, because what that does is it activates this very important constellation for Scorpio, which is like that deeper movement into intuition, the inside, the kingdom of heaven is within. And then that will move us into everyone getting ready for this part where I'm hoping that the sun will eventually release all of its plasma and we'll have the magnetic reversal. And many of us will shift right out of here into our luminous form. So that is what I'm thinking is going to happen. I told you I was going to show you some other information. So I'd like you to make a screenshot of this. So in order for the kingdom of heaven to work, in order for your third eye to work, you cannot be around this. All right. That's why where I am right now, my phone says, and I will show it to you, it says LTE. All right. And I'll take my Wi-Fi off because I actually have the Wi-Fi on right now. But it says LTE and it's only two bars of service. If your phone says, I can't show you, 5G plus, you're in a place where you can start to go into defense mode. If your body's in defense mode because of this, you're going to have problems with this word. That's how your soul starts to leave your body, because it causes um, impairment in the cellular structure. And I see all kinds of people in this group. There are so many people joining this group every day, and they're taking all kinds of like pharmaceutical advice and advice from doctors that are just using Chat GPT. I'm going to tell you what you need. You need raw milk. You need raw milk. You need to get your enzymes and your gut health and the proper bacteria in your body. And then you have enough energy for the various cellular processes, including nerve impulses, transmission, and active transport of the metabolic process. And so that you can prioritize, then you have enough energy for the electron chain to pass along the proteins and the mitochondria so that your body is alive and the kingdom of heaven is within. So that's why, folks, you got to get away from this. And in the call that I had this weekend with the couples therapy, because I've started that now because Jupiter is finally in Cancer again. It hasn't been since 2013, but we've got the benefics. Jupiter in Cancer is excellent emotional stability, emotional support. But if you're in places with this, you're not going to feel emotional stability or emotional support, because this is something that is stressing you out so much, so that this is not working for you anymore. That's why they're putting those up. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this. I'm going to get into this. This is what you are. When you get out to the morphogenetic, it's called morphogenetic chakras. Those are not inside of your body. Those are outside of your body. They're above your head and they're below your feet. So when I do my exercise or outdoor movement classes, I will be talking more about, like, you have inner chakras and then you have outer chakras that are beyond your body but are still part of your energy field. Those are called morphogenetic chakras, and we have one at the 15th dimension, the 14th, the 13th, and the 12th dimension. And then you have all the others are within you, which have to do with these 12 signs, okay? All right, and so you are a rainbow being experiencing these multiple dimensions right now, but you might not know that you are. So, you're already in the fifth dimension. You're already in the fourth dimension. You're already in the ninth dimension. You're already in the 10th dimension. It's just that you don't know it yet. And that's why I'm starting this out with understanding that you are already there. It's just that your ability to perceive that is not open yet, but you're already there. You're already in the 15th dimension. And then when I looked at the color of the 15th dimension, it's exactly what I see as God. It's like the color of bougainvilleas. That's like, so when I pray to the color of bougainvilleas. It's like fuchsia, red, magenta, purple. That's the color. It's like all mixed up together. It's like fuchsia, red, magenta, purple. It's mostly magenta. It's like bougainvillea. And that is God. And so when I pray, it's not to an individual, it's to a color, it's a frequency. And I was watching some videos of these savants. The savant, there's a woman who has an IQ of 228, and another guy who was born as a savant. not acquired, but he was born that way. And so he sees numbers as colors. He sees letters as colors and smells. And so that's like he's working from a different part of his brain. And the woman, her last name was actually Savant. Um, she is operating at 228. And she said, what's the best way for you to get your IQ to that level? Is not be passive in your learning, be active in your learning. And so that's how I know you should not be using AI. Like you should be using your direct perception of the stars. You should be using a book if you need to. And I have my book right here. I can show you. This is the book that I use for how to see the stars. Do not believe your phone. You can use your phone, but I marked a couple of pages here so you can see. This is where we are. This is where we are. That's where we are. So everyone's like, where are we? Well, right now we're passing through. Here's the ecliptic. Here's the different constellations that we pass through in the ecliptic. And you're going to see it's not just Cancer, the crab. There's a whole bunch of other ones that we are passing through, including the foot of Orion the Hunter, which is Rigel, the Castor and Pollux twins, and yes, the Cancer crab. But you're passing through all of this. All of this is affecting us. All these constellations on either side of the ecliptic. That's what I want you to study. And then the opposite of that, which now my students in the southern hemisphere, I want you to go out and look, and I'd like you to actually look at the sky. And when we do the recordings, I want you to report what you see in the sky, because in the southern hemisphere, they're seeing an entirely different sky. They're seeing a different movement through the ecliptic. And that's what, and so there's Ophiuchus right there. Ophiuchus and Scorpio overlap on either side of the ecliptic, which is what I just told you. And Libra has very much this whole movement toward the Scorpio Ophiuchus, so that the archer is pointing towards the Scorpio Ophiuchus dynamic, which has to do with here's the snake handler, right, holding the snakes, and here's Scorpio stinging and providing the energy to get the zinc spark going up the Kundalini to open that third eye, and the kingdom of heaven is within. So this is what I'm trying to explain, folks, is that to get out of here, you got to go within. So everyone's always going, how do we get out of here? I'm like, it's inside of you. The void is inside of you. The stars are inside of you. The entire cosmos is inside of you. The other thing I'm going to speak about is the movement of the stars is through different elements also. So right now what we have is we've got 4 different elements. I don't know that we won't add another element when we go through the magnetosphere, but right now we have earth element, which has to do with like the gnomes and earthy energy of matter. That will always rule a particular grouping of the signs, earth, because that's the element. Water, which is Cancer, which we're moving into Cancer. Jupiter has already moved into Cancer. So that's the element of water. It goes along with the undine or the sea nymph, the water elemental beings. And then fire is the sprites, like fae that are fiery. And I love if you could connect with the elementals. Yesterday, I was dreaming. I was reading a book by Thomas Meyer around the elementals, and I transported myself to inside of that hill behind the house. I was inside of that hill with the earth elementals. That hill is hollow. because remember, this is all a holographic reality. So I was with the elementals inside of that hill, and then two helicopters flew over so low that it shook the whole cabin. And as he got up on the couch with me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was just inside the hill. And so when you connect that inner world, um, that deep intuition, that psychic space, that's how you travel inside this holographic environment. And that's also how you travel outside. So you can travel inside the hill with the gnome creatures, the earth elementals, or you can travel out. So I'm going to ask you to pick a star to travel out and try and connect with that star. Any star that's significant in your chart, say that Arcturus at 24 degrees Libra is somehow significant in your chart. I want you to find that star, try and see it with your eyes, but don't use your phone. Try to memorize the stars and the colors of the stars. If you need to use Astrology King to get like the colors of the stars, is like that a yellow and purple one, or is that an orange and pink star, or is that a blue and white star? And start to memorize that and connect with the stars, just like I was inside of the hill. You can instantly connect to that star and ask about that star. What quality does it bring to your magnetized light body? What quality are you sending it back? Like, what information are you sending it back? Because I was totally talking to these earth beings, these earth elementals. Okay. So, as I said, we have earth, we have water, we have fire, and we have air. We have moved into the Aquarian age, which has to do with electrical air. And I also think that's part of the bifurcation is some people are going to the true cosmos of the true electrical air of it's called the water bearer, but what she's dumping is actually stars from the cosmos. So you will be this starry, luminous being again. And some people are going to a different environment. And I think that that is part of what's happening right now, too. So you're starting to see a lot of chaos because the electrical air is being messed with by this stuff. Because otherwise, we should absolutely have all of our skills and be able to connect with those stars super easily. So, this is like garbage frequency in the air. Plus, there's particles and all kinds of baloney out there that are trying to affect your direct connection. So you've got to try a little bit harder, just like when I was in that hill and then those two black helicopters came over and shook the whole house. It's not going to stop me. It's going to make me more profoundly connected because now I'm not passive. I'm not waiting. I'm going to go and I'm going to journey into that hill again and meet those elementals. So we've got the four different elements across these 12 signs, which makes perfect triangles. And I will explain all the geometries. The other thing that happens in astrology is everything's by gender. So if Cancer's always the first house for the theme of Monday, that's water. The water is primary. We all came from water. Water is primary and it's feminine. So water is the first, feminine is the first. And that puts us back into understanding the matriarchy and how this all got diluted and muddied up when the modern astrologers made Aries the first. That's wrong. Cancer, feminine, water, cardinal. So it's also mode. How does it move? It's gender based, so it'll go female, male, female, male, female, male, female, male, all around the chart. And I will teach you that soon. And also the mode of operation. So you've got water, but it's the beginning water. Beginning water is cardinal water. Okay, and then there will be a fixed water, which is the Scorpio water, very fixed in its position. Like it likes or it dislikes, it's hot or it's cold water. There's not a middle room with Scorpio, right? So that's fixed water. And then mutable water, or what's called the final water, is Pisces. So we will also understand that it is 360 degrees, 30 degrees in each thing. Then you're going to start with Cancer, That's feminine, cardinal, water. That's how you start. Now, in your chart, you might have a different ascendant. You might have a Sagittarius ascendant, like this client who has Marco Polo. Okay, so Marco Polo's here, but her Sagittarius ascendant is over here. And if you remember, this is getting into the stars of Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus, Sagittarius A is the galaxy that we're in, but Ophiuchus is the constellation there. Okay, I think I've been talking for a while, and that was a good introduction. So what you're going to need is a circle, like a bowl, a notebook. I think you should also have a journal to write all of the things that you're learning and to do your own research. And the most important thing, this is active learning. I want you to study. If you've been accepted as a student, and I can't take many because I don't even know, I don't even know if the Zoom is going to work, but I've taken a few people, but everyone will get the basic recording. So you're not left out. It's just that even when I did the bog group or the dolphin ancestors group, I can only take like 10 people because my internet is not that good, but you'll all get some info. And then the conversation where they're asking me questions, I will try and answer those questions in the next recording. So you all get that information too. But if you're in the group and you have questions, you can put those in the comments. For the people who watch this on YouTube or on BitChute, you can put questions too. It's not like I'm going to sit around typing all day answering personal questions about your chart. No, then you have to just get a session with me. But understanding that the kingdom of heaven is within is the primary thing to start understanding astrology. All of this is projected out of you based on where you have reached to in those either inner chakras or those morphogenetic field chakras of the 13th, 14th, 15th dimension. Those are outside of your body. And we will study that too. Okay, the kingdom of heaven is within.